with that, guys, um, let's get into this. All right. So one of the first things we got to do is we want to announce the winners of our Nova Web contest. Okay. For those of you guys that haven't been in the company for very long or the organization for very long, we had a web design contest. Nova is our WordPress um, retail or website hosting product. Okay, you can buy a Nova package from us. You can host your website. You can build a wonderful website on Elementor or any design website plugin that you want to use on WordPress. Okay, what we did over the summer is we did a web design contest. So somebody purchased the package, a Nova package from us, and then they went and built their website, and we're gonna do kind of a cash prize for that. So first, we had a couple cash prizes to give away, so we're going to go ahead and announce these winners today. First place for our web design contest goes to Catherine Ann Clayton, and that is a cash prize of $1,500. So, Catherine Ann, congratulations on your web design first place winner there. It's always good to see you guys up there and achieving such wonderful success. So, Catherine Ann, I know you're out there. You're pushing, you know, CloudX very hard. You're a very active member of the DAO, and this is well deserved. So, Catherine Ann, congratulations! $1,500 cash prize. And again, guys, for those of you that were not involved in the company, this is it was a web design contest. Catherine Ann went out there. She purchased her Nova package from the company, and she went out there and designed a website on our infrastructure. So all of the web designs that came through, they got built on the CloudX hardware. So this starts creating a culture of self-consumption utilization. Stop paying GoDaddy, start paying yourself. Stop paying Google, start paying yourself. Stop paying Microsoft and start paying yourself. That's what this model is all about, okay? We're incentivizing people through these contests to migrate over to their own hardware, to migrate over to their own community infrastructure and take control of your data. So, first place winner there, Catherine Ann. Mr. Mr. Mike Healy coming in on second place here. Congratulations, Mike. Mike, if you guys do not know Mike, Mike is also a very active member of the DAO, kind of spearheading along with our uh, good friend Terry, our a blockchain project that has been brought in to be run on our hardware. So, Mike, congratulations, second place there, $1,000 cash prize. These cash prizes, guys, will be deposited into your wallet first thing on Monday. So you guys will be able to take those withdrawals out. Maybe go buy me a nice dinner, or send me a nice birthday card or something like that. Just kidding. But these deposits will be made to your wallet. Mike, congratulations. Catherine Ann, congratulations. And rounding up third place here, Mr. Terry Tiller. Mr. Terry, again, like I just said, he is a phenomenal member, one of our spotlight leaders of the last quarter, because he's just been doing an amazing job, bringing in cloud consumption for us, helping us to communicate messaging, and he's just a very active brand ambassador, brand partner for us. So Terry, congratulations. Third place there, also $1,000 cash prize. So congratulations to all our winners, Terry, Mike, and Catherine Ann. Amazing job on these websites, and we hope that we're able to launch another version of this web design contest here in the future. If it's something you guys feel that you guys are excited about and you want to start seeing more and more websites built on Nova, we'll definitely, you guys know me, I'll put my money where my mouth is. So, all right, let's get into a couple updates here. All right, so first of all, our DAO updates. This is more the technical update here. Our dev team, our smart contract team, has gone through and they finished architecting the staking contract. Okay, they've completed most of the functionality for that contract. We've actually deployed the token, the NFT, and the algorithm, the distributor. Okay, and then also the voting contract. So we have four of the five contracts already deployed. Okay. Um, they're making a few updates to the staking contract, like I said, for the last little bit. As you guys know, we've made some announcements, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But those are our DAO. We're getting to the final stages of completing all of the smart contract work on mainnet. Okay, um, our iN8 hub now. Our iN8 hub, just so you guys are aware, like I said, stop paying Microsoft, stop paying Google, pay yourselves. Well, the iN8 hub is the way we start that process. Okay, this is going to be a product. It's going to be a couple different apps. Once we get them all submitted, you will have your iN8 Drive app and your iN8 Talk app or Connect app. We're trying to figure out what naming convention we go with. Those two apps will make up your hub. You will also have a web portal. So right now we are in the final review, I should say production review for Apple iOS and production review for Android or Google Play Store. Okay, so this iN8 hub is currently up and working on our test pilots and our APKs. Now it's time to get them into production review. That means it's a little bit dependent on Apple and Google at this point, which is something we don't want to be doing, but it's something that needs to happen for us to be able to distribute our products into the world. Okay. Now, real quick, Lemon Validator update. The validators, we've got about 4 mainnet validators online so far. Okay, so we on the CloudX hardware, we have 4 Lemon validators up and running. They had to go through and do a manual configuration on those. And what we do not want to do is we don't want to launch everybody manually. So they're working on the final setup for the automation. Okay, they've been running into a few different hiccups, and I know it sounds like a broken record at this point. I keep telling people, hey, in the next 24 to 48 hours. But that's just where we've been right now. I don't know if you guys have, how many of you guys remember? I remember when I was growing up, there's regular world time and then there's Windows time, right? Technology time. And it's when you see that little bar going across and it's like you're at 90% loading, but that last 10% takes the longest, right? And that's kind of where we're at right now. We've gotten to like the 10-yard line, okay? And now we're every time we're trying to get across that end zone, we're trying to get into that goal, and what ends up happening is we get in and we get rejected. Some other error pops up. So this last 10%, guys, for this automation process has been a pain in the butt, okay? We do not want to start launching everybody manually because then that means it's a worse user experience for you as a validator owner, okay? And the reason we haven't decided to do that is because right now there's zero activity on the Lemon network, okay? So there's no activity, so that means there's no transactions happening, which means there's no gas fees that are being generated at this point. There's a couple different roadblocks on the blockchain side that we're working through the technology teams with, but just understand, guys, anybody that is a validator owner, you're not missing out on any type of rewards right now. And we are at that final 10% of getting this automated and running for us. Okay, so I appreciate the patience. Thank you for thank you for all of the patience is what I'll say. Thank you for all the hard work to our dev teams and for everybody that's been helping us communicate this messaging over to the Lemon network. Now, the big announcement that we have today is that we, as iN8 Network, we are 100% approved by the state. We have our DAO approval. We have our light papers approved. We have the bylaws approved, and we have our smart contracts approved. So I talked to the state yesterday, and they said I could publicly say we are officially registered with the state of Utah as a decentralized autonomous organization. So that's a big congratulations to everybody out there. That is a huge deal, guys. We will be the first ever decentralized network marketing company governed by the people for the people. So If you guys are not yet a member of the DAO, you guys are listening live right now, you guys are listening to the seats, plural. Go and do so right now. We will be going into a process of talking more and more about the significance of a DAO, and we're going to be talking more and more about um, the benefits of being a member of that DAO. Okay, so with that being said, guys, we still are on track for October 15th for the minting date for our iN8 NFTs, our DAO seats. Okay, October 15th, we will be minting on the chain. If you guys have previously purchased in our Web 2 system, in our pre sale system, you guys have been waived the staking, the minting fee. There's no minting fee for you, as well as you'll be receiving a little coupon code, if you will, that will allow you to mint on the blockchain. You do have to pay the gas fees of maybe 50 cents to $1 and able to mint. It's probably under $1 to get that minted. Okay. Um, for anybody that's wanting to mint directly on the blockchain, you could go ahead and do so. There will be a $10 minting fee for each NFT that's minted outside of our iN8 network system. Okay, so you can come in and continue to buy like you guys have been utilizing traditional methods, or you can mint directly on the blockchain. We'll be coming up with some updates and we'll be teaching people how to do that. One of our last updates that we have here, and one of the things that we did in order to get the approval of the state of Utah, is we implemented a proof of governance or a proof of participation model. Okay, that proof of participation model is going to be tracked by an iN8 DAO members app. Okay, so you guys, as a member of the DAO, you guys will download an app, and inside of here, you'll be able to take actions, track your actions, earn points, and activate your rewards. Okay, so all of those activities will be tracked. There will be a little bit of a grace period for the first 30 to 60 days while we get all the technology rounded up. But another thing, the iN8 DAO app and its sister app that we'll have in the future, all of these things will also be running on the CloudX hardware. So as you're using these apps, you're creating consumption for the cloud as well. So the more you use it, the more you earn, the more the CloudX model earns as well. So make sure you guys understand that. It's an amazing, amazing, amazing feat that we have accomplished here. So congratulations to every one of you guys. Now, what I want to do is bring on our special guest, Mr. Rob Lamb. He has been the cornerstone of being able to get this model launched. He has been an amazing advisor. He's been amazing at bringing different contacts and different opening different doors for us as an organization. He's been helping us, keeping us safe, covering our butts, if you will, making sure we're doing everything in compliance, because compliance for us guys, compliance for me, has been the number one thing since the very beginning with this model. So a little bit about Rob here and his experience. He can tell you a little bit more about himself. This is just kind of from his professional bio here, but he is a very, very innovative, forward-thinking lawyer, and that's what I love about him. Being able to go in and discuss, iterate on an idea, discuss an idea, and be able to go through and say, how can we get this done? Not just a no, you can't do that, or no, don't do that, but how can we get this done? And that's the innovative technologies. Rob was the person and is the person that helped write the Utah DAO Act. He has been in blockchain and fintech. He's a specialist in that. And so we are very excited to have Rob on with us, helping us to navigate the compliance of becoming and sustaining our status as a decentralized autonomous organization. So Rob, I appreciate you being on with us today. Thank you so much. I'm going to probably stop the share here so people can see us on the big screen. We also have a live translation going on, so I'm going to try to slow it down. I might have a couple questions, Rob, and I guess I'll just kind of let you take it from here. Maybe we do a little bit of AMA style, whatever you're looking for. So I'll leave it there with you, Rob. Appreciate you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. Much too gracious, and I appreciate the chance to work with Joe. It's been a real kind of highlight of my career. We match innovative energy, and so it's fun to be able to work with Joe and this community. And I look forward to spending a few minutes today. I have the feed open as well, and I'll try to respond to questions as they come up. I'll get into something of an informal discussion, and you can pop into questions at any time as part of this. As I was contemplating on what I might share today, I'll just do quickly my background. My background is it's relevant to DAOs. 23, 24-year experienced lawyer, mostly in the commercial and the finance space, and mostly in the context of international constructs and international um, entity formation. I come from big firms, and a lot of these big firms had big international, multinational clients that had different international goals. And so early in my career, I started working with helping my clients develop international entity structures and strategies for different objectives, tax strategies, liability strategies, and just to be able to reach bigger and greater parts of their markets throughout the world. So that's my background. And so when Web3 started to really build and grow, and this idea of what a decentralized autonomous organization started to come online, it was sort of a natural fit because I was doing a lot of these international structure entities, as it were. Initially, and I would like to say this trend has changed, but it really hasn't yet. A lot of those that are interested in forming or matching their enterprise goals to a DAO, a lot of them chose to go international because of how uncertain the fractional sharing legal regimen was here in the United States. And when I say that, really, I'm talking about tokenization. And so we'll get into tokenization in a bit. But what I would like to do is just discuss, if it's okay with this. I know I'm dealing with a more sophisticated group, and you're all part of Joe's network, which is cool, and I can make certain assumptions about I think a level of knowledge with respect to DAOs. I'm going to go through some very basic aspects of them. I hope that that's okay. If it's too basic, just fire off in the comments section, and I'll sort of ramp it back up. But the idea of a decentralized autonomous organization is that there is a joint enterprise for a community, and it's, if you think about it, it's really powerful. And in fact, that's why I think that there was such a rush about 3, 4, 5 years ago to really explore the possibility and the potentiality of a DAO. If you can, outside of a regular enterprise or corporate structure, so outside of that, if you can come together in a community for an objective and then pool your resources, whether those be financial resources, whether those be knowledge-based resources, whether those be skill sets like coding and that sort of thing, if you can reach in an a jurisdictional way, in an a community country way, get outside of your own sort of tight communities and broaden yourself out into a vast community, um, for a common goal and a common purpose, that's really powerful. And I think Twitter and some of the other social media platforms, Discord, they became the vehicle, the tool that can really reach, I think, a broader audience. And naturally, what happened were those that said, "Hey, I can code. I have a phone and some resources. I want to ultimately contribute to this community." And so that sort of naturally came up inside and out and pushed out of the Web3 world and the Web3 space, which is really powerful. It's extremely powerful. And you saw all sorts of things like a DAO group community wanting to buy a professional sports franchise. You saw that in Denver, Colorado a couple of years ago. Another group was sort of born to purchase, I think, a version of the U.S. Constitution, at least bid on that. And those are sort of fun and those make the news. But then there's what's really happening in the space, and that is, hey, I have this incredible idea. And if I could pool resources for this incredible idea, then it's sort of power inside of the community. And so you all know that, and that's why you're part of what Joe is doing. I've always felt like if you could truly have a strong utilitarian idea like Joe has created and your community has created with this, and then create and manage that with inside a common community, that could be really powerful. And that's what ultimately what we built and what you're building here at iN8. So I think this is important. I'll just speak to it quickly, but there is part of why the DAOs grew up is because there were certain adherences to this idea of decentralization, which we've talked about, and autonomy, or at least these autonomous organizations, that not only could you join it, but you could remain a certain amount autonomous, and that meaning autonomous to whatever you want to be autonomous to governments, to tax regulators, to whatever you wanted to create sort of this autonomy for. That has been, to a certain extent, as a lawyer, when I came into this space, I felt like those things were always going to be both what is a virtue to the community, but also to an impediment to the legal side. There is a reason that you want some level of corporate form. Under most common law jurisdictions, and especially true in the United States, if you are engaged in a common enterprise or a joint enterprise, then that creates, if you don't have corporate form, that creates liability that strings among all of you. So to not form, in other words, to say, we truly want to be decentralized. We do not want to fold into any sort of government regimen at all, whether that be in the state of Utah, in the state of Wyoming, or in the Marshall Islands, which we'll talk about some of that in a bit. If you say you do not want to adhere to that and truly be decentralized and find yourself in this sort of a-jurisdictional floating environment, then what that means, if you're participating in that joint enterprise, you have the potential of having joint liability for everything that the community itself does. And what we found in the early stages of DAO, and those truly committed to being decentralized and not wanting to do any sort of corporate form, what we found was that there was a fair amount of inappropriate activity. There was some fraud that was going on. There was violations around the token economics, both from a contractual standpoint and a government standpoint. And so what we found, and some of the early lawyers that were brought into this, we found that we were cleaning up messes and then starting to manage after the fact. We were managing this joint and several liability that went into the full community. The last thing anybody wants is that level of scrutiny that pushes itself down into individuals that are participating in the DAO. And so some of us that are corporate formation lawyers looked at it and said, what's the solution here to this? And the solution is to do what we always tend to do, is compromise a bit and to surrender a bit, and you surrender to corporate form. And I saw that as an inevitability, whereas I love the fact that these communities are truly decentralized or can be decentralized, but I also recognize that it would probably bolster the idea of a DAO if you could create some sort of corporate legal construct that they could fit inside of, that would then create liability protection for all of you that are now participating in. So that is ultimately the strategy that we took. And initially, I happen to be located in Salt Lake City, Utah, so I'm here in Utah. Most of my career has not been in Utah; it's been all over the world, actually. But of the last 10 years, I've been here in Utah, and so they would come to me and say, "We want to get this DAO formed." And at the time, I had two choices: I could push them offshore, or we could go to one of what we called the wrapper states. Wyoming's a wrapper state, Vermont's a wrapper state, New Hampshire, I believe, where they've created legislation inside their states that allow their limited liability codes, so their LLC codes, to just simply wrap around a DAO, which was which has sort of worked, it kind of works. Um, or I would say let's go offshore and let's fully structure everything offshore, whether it be in the BVI, whether it be in the Marshall Islands, Gibraltar is another one, Isle of Man. Some of these offshore jurisdictions that were basically sitting there saying, "Hey, you can come here. We have flexibility. We have the ability to kind of take who you are as a DAO, register here, and then you have DAO protection." And I did those. I did quite a few of those for different clients. And then I went back and said, well, it's so impractical because so much of industry, so much of innovation, so much of those that actually want to participate. I love the fact that they're international, but to basically firewall the United States just doesn't make a lot of sense. You ultimately have to have some level of strategy for the United States. I love that even your community is bursts outside the US walls, but ultimately you have to have a strategy here in the United States. So I decided to do something fairly provocative, and this is Joe mentioned it. I decided to look at it and take a more comprehensive look at what we could do by way of legislation and approach the state of Utah and say, let's try this, let's try it a little bit differently. And so we created a comprehensive legislative regimen here in the state of Utah that allows for anonymity to still be maintained with respect to the DAO participants. There's a little bit of surrender with the named managers of the company that then come in, undocs, say who they are, register, and get all of the names, and we create something of a management team that then does register with the state of Utah. And then we have a more comprehensive bylaws. Instead of using just a simple operating agreement, we use bylaws that then incorporates concepts and aspects that mirror the smart contract governance. And so I took that to the state of Utah, consulted with some really, really smart people, mostly coming out of the universities that are, I think, out of Harvard, out of Stanford, and a couple out of Oxford. And we sort of put our heads together and we created what we believe is a really kind of cool, different, more comprehensive view of how DAOs should ultimately operate that allows for a high degree of anonymity with those that participate, allows for the smart contracts to sort of govern inside the construct and the idea of the bylaws, and then gives the DAO base and the DAO participants all of the legitimacy and legal liability that they ultimately need. So that's what we did. And we got that passed, and it is active and effective. Joe and I spent a lot of time together working through with the state of Utah. It's somewhat novel to them because the law is novel. There are more and more people coming to the state of Utah because they like this. And so there we are. And just like Joe said, we got final approval this last week, and we feel really, really good about it. Let me tell you what we didn't fully accomplish with this effort, but it's okay because this is all part of the calculation. When I pushed through that or used my access and my knowledge base to kind of architect, write out, and then push through the Utah DAO legislation, I knew that I wasn't solving one problem, and I wasn't solving the federal government problem. I wasn't fully solving the tokenization issue, meaning that tokens are still governed by the federal government here in the United States. I personally believe that there will be a trend, just like 40 years ago when the limited liability legislation in the different states came online, that put tension and pressure and stress on the federal government to recognize units versus shares, to do some of the same analysis around SEC, how we test that sort of thing with units over shares. That sort of thing and trend is happening now again. Even if we don't get in the United States, we don't get a different administration that is more Web3 friendly. I think that it is inevitable that the SEC will ultimately view the SEC in the United States will ultimately view the company by company, DAO by DAO token schemes. It will view them, and I say that in the British sense. It'll view those as they should be viewed, and not with a prejudice towards securities treatment every time, not with a prejudice towards a Howey treatment. And part of that strategy, and Joe and I have been very, very, very careful, is that we are leaning deeply, heavily into utility and governance. And so, and inside that, and it's true for this enterprise. The facts have to matter, and you are truly in a utility. And so, if there is heavy utility consideration, ultimately heavy utility consideration, and the tokens and the token usage is for internal governance purposes inside a community that we've created around this direct selling model, that we believe to a high degree will be able to maintain the integrity of being treated as a non-security for purposes of what we're ultimately doing. Where we do, if we go outside of that as part of our ultimate strategy, then we will work closely and carefully with the SEC, not against them, but with them, and continue to work through and make sure that we're fully compliant. So,
can I sorry
yeah,
to interrupt. We got
of course,
here, and I want to kind of throw them into because I
please.
think put a little bit of focus on this because everything I had like a list of questions I was going to ask you, but
Okay.
literally I was looking at my list and he's like, okay, you answered all of them, right?
Oh,
Like
good. Okay, good.
Utah and Wyoming and Vermont, you know, the LLC wrappers. So what I kind of want to put an emphasis on is help people understand, especially because we have some Spanish speakers on here, is they're kind of asking the question of, you know, it's if it's not regulated, the cryptocurrencies or crypto tokens, right? How is it that we're kind of how do we get this approved? And you're kind of hitting on it, this proof of governance or proof of participation, the utility of it, and then the second one is kind of does the DAO allow for all the tax benefits, or how are we taxed as a DAO? How are we looked at from a federal level for the tax liability, tax benefits, or tax liability to the federal government? So I guess and you were already talking about this proof, the utility of it, but I want to let people know like the way that we're able to get this through, and then also maybe talk a little bit about like a lot of the cases that are going on right now with a lot of the big boys, the Binance's. BNB was not labeled as security. XRP was not labeled as security. The tokens are not being labeled securities. And that's kind of where we're you know getting to. We have the utility for the governance tokens that we are selling, but that's a utility because there's participation in that. And then you have the iN8 token, which if precedent starts to, I know there's appeals and all these things in there, but that the precedent that's being set right now in the court systems that the tokens itself is not a security.
Yeah. So yeah. Let me. There's a lot there. Do you mind if I just sort
Yeah, no, that's I wanted to just get it out this way you can kind of massage that into the community here.
You got it. So in the Utah DAO legislation with respect to taxes, okay, they're treated, ultimately they're going to be treated like they would under an LLC, meaning they pass through the tax obligations will pass through to the individual participants. Okay, so you ultimately can't avoid, and that's part of surrendering to, I think, a corporate form of some sort, and that's the give and take between the people and the state, meaning that there's this sort of compromise. We are going to come into it and we're going to allow ourselves to be part of a registered system, which also means we're going to be legit, which also means that we ought to be able to give the tax benefit for increase and for build that you don't normally get if you're not paying taxes. Meaning that what the DAO will do is it will run like it does an operating enterprise, and it will create a tax basis on our initial buy-in, and then we will treat anything above the basis as a tax obligation to the entity that then passes into the individuals. And so we will be very tax compliant and be able to send everybody's tax forms out in sort of the regular due course, and that will just be sort of the reality. So there will be a governing requirement around finances to do it and to do it appropriately, and then to push those tax forms to down the line. Now the good news there is if we absolutely crush it and kill it and things are going well, you have the tax paperwork to buy a house and buy a car and that sort of thing. So that's part of the tax response. As far as the you asked a little bit about the difference between Utah and some of the other jurisdictions. I mentioned it. Utah's more comprehensive DAO legislation. The others are basically wrappers. And again, that works, and it puts the same tension on the federal government because people in Wyoming are having the same issues we're going to have, meaning there will be this natural tension between us and the state and the federal government. Compliance with SEC. Well, I'll speak now to the trends. You're absolutely right, Joe, and it's encouraging to me, but I also sort of predicted it. There is, to use the metaphor, those first through the gates are usually the bloodiest, and that's what's happened over the last 3, 4, 5 years. Is that initially a lot of the heavy-handedness of the SEC leaned in really heavy on some of these larger companies that were doing these complex token economics, and they were using what we call the Howey test, which is a Depression era the legislative jurisprudential precedent regimen to judge every single security or potential security offering against. So Depression era or court cases versus where we're at now. And what I am seeing, and I knew this would happen, is that there is absolutely a trend and awakening up to the real world of what we're at now with this technology and Web3. And I believe that will continue to trend in the right direction. There may be jurisdiction by jurisdiction changes, and there may be ultimate pressure by the Supreme Court or on the Supreme Court to take up this question and once and for all create clarity in the United States as to what a token, if a token is a security, if it's not a security, how it's treated and how it's judged. And in truth, we have to act right now as if our token offerings will be governed by the SEC. And again, our strategy initially, I think that we'll be able to evolve outside of the strategy as the law evolves out of it, is to stay really tight within governance, to stay really tight within utility, kind of create our ecosystem within iN8 and stay disciplined around our own ecosystem. And then as we build and we grow, the potential that the law will evolve and change as well.
So one of the things that I hear there that I kind of want to emphasize as well is like, guys, the most important thing for us is compliance,
Right.
and it's not trying to be like a maxi and go anti-government. It's working with the government, right? Like the entire speech of the SEC the last 3 years has been come in and register, and well, we're registering with our jurisdiction, like with our local state jurisdiction, because they have a framework. We have a framework within Utah for us to be able to do a DAO, for us to be able to do tokens for our members, and we're doing that, right? And we're doing it understanding the federal laws as well, and understanding that, hey, we want to create a great utility community. We want to have people actively participating, like I keep saying, having a vote and a voice in the direction of the organization, not just passively sitting by and hoping to make some money off of somebody else's back. No, we are all in this together as a community, right? We in the next few weeks will be coming up with different committees. If you have one of our founder memberships, you will be eligible to sit on some of our committees to help more directly in the governance. We have the bylaws which have been approved, which we'll be distributing to all the members once it's minted, so you can go through and read exactly how the organization operates, how we need to govern it, and we'll be able to sit through and go through and vote on different proposals and the direction of the organization. So I guess I'm trying to answer this question directly and indirectly because I keep getting it. How will the members know about these different committees? Just stay plugged into our calls, stay plugged into the DAO dashboard, and attend the meetings, right? That's basically what it is. So you got to attend the meetings to be able to participate in the DAO. Instead of us meeting in an office, we're meeting like we are today. Sometimes we'll have webinar type of meetings like we are right now. Sometimes we'll have meetings where it's open mic, open to the public, if you will. So yes. Let's see what else. Oh, I guess the one thing that I was trying to get to with that question before I got distracted was, like, what would happen in the case, Rob, where we got some type of, and I don't think we would in this case, a cease and desist from the federal government or something from the federal government. Like, how does something like that work in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible for us to ultimately predict what the federal government would do, and we have to be vigilant. I think try to stay ahead of it. You used to be able to submit to the SEC a pre-opinion letter to be able to get an opinion on what you're ultimately doing. They've more or less cut those off. They're very hard to process and to get. And so I think that what we try to do is just stay very inside the lines the best we can, the best we know. We're in this community should know. Joe and I discuss trends. We're both monitoring trends sort of independently. Then we bring those trends together, and then hey, did you read this? Did you read this? And so we're trying to keep track. I have a really expensive legal library called Westlaw that I have set up to give me triggers on everything that's new. And so I get daily, for the most part, daily notices. And so it's on us to monitor this stuff very, very closely, see what the trends are, and then stay inside the trends. But one of the blessings and the burdens of being a lawyer is that this is sort of on me, right? And yet it's also it's never clear. There has to be interpretation, and so we'll do the very best we can to watch that very closely. And will we get a cease and desist? Will we get an investigative letter? Potentially, hopefully not. We're going to work our very best not to have that happen. But there's certain things we just can't control.
Perfect, guys. Well, I want to see if there's any maybe last minute questions, last minute concerns that you guys put into the chat box.
Colin asked the question about is this similar to C corporations in California? It is very similar to that. That's part of the Utah. It's a flow through, pass through. It's a corporation, but like an S corporation that it ultimately passes through, and we'll be doing the paperwork on an annual basis so everybody knows what their tax obligation above their basis is. Does the K1 distribution form from the DAO come through the passive or non-passive act? That's Colin Brown. That's another good question. Even the state of Utah doesn't fully know. Yeah, that's a good question. We're so new. Whether you do like a K1 type of distribution, I think it'll be more of a traditional S corp type treatment, but we'll do a good job of really understanding what that is as those obligations come around from an internal paperwork standpoint, and we'll communicate very clearly what those obligations are.
And I think, like Rob says, is like we're basically on texting basis with the state of Utah at this point, right? Like we're like I'm even texting with the state representatives of the DAO at the corporations division. Hey, what about this? And can we do this? And so all these things we're just working side by side with the government right now, and that's what I want you guys to see is like, hey, we're not trying to go off and say, screw regulation. No, we were like, give us regulation. We'll work within whatever framework you're giving us, and we'll build something massive.
That's right. Um, Kramer asked a really good question. What about people outside the U.S. that don't owe U.S. government any obligations? The good news about the Utah structure is that we never have to list you. That those of you that are in the DAO participation base that are not part of the membership organization or part of the membership board that registers the DAO itself, which that's a very close community, which we do that on purpose. So we come out, you don't have to. And so we'll still communicate that tax information to you, but it should not create an onshore tax obligation. If for some reason that changes, we'll communicate that to you.
Cool. Well, Rob, I want to. I know there's a couple, a couple different questions coming through. If there's any last minute good questions that come through, I just want to thank you, Rob, for all the hard work you've done, patience with us over the last little bit as well. And I know there's a lot we still have to get through. I asked the state, hey, can we mint? They said yes. Can we do this? Yeah. And so, guys, we're working very closely with the state and figuring everything out. And when the federal government does come knocking, if they come knocking, hey, we're right there. We're ready to be able to show our model. We're ready to walk in with them and figure out exactly what they're looking for and how we can help them. So we're running this thing. I like to say it like a publicly traded company from day one. We have everything being audited. We're being transparent. You guys will have access to a lot of the records that we're talking about. So, yeah, I guess would U.S. residents be required to file Utah tax return? U.S. residents.
No, if they're not part of the
Yeah.
group files. Yeah. Again, if any of that changes, we're learning, they're learning. We'll communicate that as we go. I'm available on LinkedIn. Anybody's welcome to reach out to me there. I keep a pretty busy schedule, but we'd be happy to, where I can, answer any questions that may come up. You can DM me on LinkedIn, or Joe probably has my information. He can send it out as well.
Definitely. Well, Rob, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for all the hard work. Any any closing thoughts? I guess here I'll leave you with the last word.
Well, no, I appreciate that. I love being part of this community. I want to continue to facilitate your growth and your success. I think it is absolutely innovative, and it's cool that we're doing it, I think, in an innovative way with the state of Utah, and forcing, I believe, the federal government to really take terms with who we are and how these innovative, decentralized, autonomous organizations can really work and work well to build and foster a community.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, with that, thank you so much. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys on the next call. Kramer, I see your question there. I'll get you an answer, and we'll talk through those things. But thank you, guys. We'll talk soon. Thanks, Rob.
Recording stopped.